Hey everyone, it's Jasmine, your brow expert. Hope to be your brow expert if I am not already. I've been shaping eyebrows at the Anastasia salon in Beverly Hills, and I'm still there shaping brows. So please come by and get your brows shaped. And some of you have. It's been a pleasure meeting you. Thank you for trusting me with your eyebrows. Today's model is a very common brow. A lot of my clients has this where it's actually a pretty shape. You're going to look at the before and go, it's not a bad shape. I kind of have that as well, because we over tweeze underneath to get that high arch, and then it ends up being too thin. She also has very thick strands of hair, and I point out the thick strands of hair because she's got a nice outline. That's why you see the shape, but then she understands that it's a little too thin and she wants it to be fuller. So how do you go fuller without looking overly full, where it matches the face? She also has a couple of grays here and there. So how do you cover those grays without pulling them? Because I advise clients not to pull their grays inside the brow hair for the main reason that you can pull out a good one too. I think it's still a myth, or I think the myth has been squashed, because when you take out one, you don't get more grays. At least not that I can see. And I've been shaping eyebrows for over 25 years almost now. So I've seen just about everything when it comes to that. So you have to trust me on that. So without further ado, let's bring on the model. So this brow, I think, is probably the most common brow I see at the salon. Well, a lot of the brows are common, but this in particular. Now, as you can see up in the front, it's a little too further in, and underneath the eyebrows, the outline is where I'm gonna mainly apply the color. So she's going to need a little bit of waxing right underneath because she does have a lot of fuzz and a couple little tiny strands of hair. I don't know if you can see that. But up in the front, how I outlined the white outline is pinch of the nose right here in a 90-degree angle. So hopefully you guys know this by now, right? But if you don't, that's okay. Always know it's at the pinch, meaning it's on the side of that nose bridge. And underneath, that is going to be the most important area. So I always like to show that I'm going to put a highlighter on first. You can do this first, middle, and going back. So this little guy, the reason why I do this a lot before, especially for a brow like this, is as you can see underneath that, I'm just leaving this right now. I'm not going to blend it in. So you can see that right in that area down below. Now, I clearly have that concealer underneath because of the tattooed brows, but I don't know if you're going to see this highlighter, but well, it's a Pro pencil, which is an eyeshadow base. You can use this all over the eyelid before you put the makeup on. Eyeshadow, that is. Okay, so now I'm blending it in. Now, because this area was waxed and tweezed, it just goes right on the skin and it doesn't interfere inside there. I'm using the medium brown powder, partly because I want a background. I'm going to do these little lines, angle lines that looks like hair. So hair strokes, but she doesn't have any hair in that pocket there, right? So by applying some color underneath, it kind of creates that background. You might see a little bit on me because I had that tattoo underneath, the old one, but I do have some concealer underneath. So I am just gonna show you how I would apply the powder. Now the powder is really important, partly because it, again, like I said, it creates that background, but it also adds into that extra guideline because you put that highlighter and now you're putting a powder underneath to add that extra guideline. Okay, so just a tiny bit. You notice that I went back and forth just to get that mid-tone color. The outline, and you're probably thinking, well, you grab that lighter color. I'm using an ash brown. You can use a medium brown. It doesn't really matter as long as it's a little bit lighter. The reason why you can actually see the powder, and she has a little bit of a darker skin than you can actually see on the video. But there's that highlighter, the Pro pencil first, and so it just kind of grabbed the color a little bit better. But again, I don't want that much color, so I'm just barely putting it on. And again, as you notice, it was just kind of a background. Okay, so tiny bit right in that area right here. And you know what, this also makes it easy when you put that highlighter on first. You put it right at the edge of that highlighter and in the eyebrow, like the brow line, that is. You're still seeing that light gap in there. Now up in the front, because the front is too, now mine isn't that far in because I have that ink. Couldn't really cover it that much with the concealer for some reason. But anyway, the front, again, I'm just adding a tiny bit of color right up in the front, but I'm also just kind of letting everything else spill in. Like whatever's left on the brush, I just spill it inside the eyebrow in that little pocket. As you can see right here, you can see some of that color now bled into the eyebrow with seeing that background powder, which is, again, very important, right? So there you go. Now I'm going to use the Dip Brow Pomade, which lasts all day. This one is ebony on her. I can actually use ebony on myself, but I'm actually going to use granite. Granite is obviously a very dark color. It's the darkest one we carry, but I'm showing it, so I'm using it so that way you can see it on the screen. Now, for some reason, I always grab a little bit more than I should. I don't know why. As you can see, all the products are listed on the screen, but I will be listing all the things that I use in the descriptions down below. And so don't worry about that, but they will be tagged. So if you, I think, tap the screen, you'll see the products pop up. So a tiny bit goes a long way. I'm just grabbing a little bit for myself. I'm using the back of the cap. You could also use the back of your hand because, you know, you're the only one using it, so you don't need to use the cap. Now, as you can see with the brush, I've turned it this way because it's going to be sharper this way. So when I lay the brush side by side, it keeps the brush sharp. Very, very important, right? Because you're going to do those little lines, and by keeping the brush sharp, it allows you to do so. Now, I'm going to show quickly the hydrating oil because the dip brow can get a little dry. So if you put a tiny bit of drops inside the pod, maybe like 1 or 2 drops a few hours before, night before, it will loosen up the dip brow. In case you're wondering, you're probably thinking, I have dip brow and it dries up a little bit. That's a really good hint. Tip, not hint, tip. Okay, so you see the longer part of that brush is angled down because you always want to use a longer part going down towards the eyebrow because that's really mainly the part of the brush you're using. So you see the lines. You could clearly see the lines because I'm applying medium to light pressure. The pressure is everything here. This is getting fancy. You don't have to do this, but you know what? I thought it would be really good technique for her because the hair that she does have, I don't know if you can tell, it's thick. Each strand of her hair is thick, which is why I chose also the dip brow. And so anything else, you'll see that separation from her brow and then her skin. So by applying a little bit of hair strokes, now I'm going to try this on myself and talk at the same time. I'm going slow and I'm applying very light pressure. You can probably see the line. And I'm using that highlighter and the powder I put underneath as my guide. Meaning I'm putting it, the longer brush, the longer side of the brush is going right at that starting point, and then I'm just going in an angle. So after you put those lines on, then you can go back and just add these little lines up in the front. Let me do a little bit up in the front. And you can go in between. So that way, you're going to try to make it as natural as possible, right? So going in between those little lines really help it to look a little natural. And you can at this point go, oh, I could use a little bit more here. I could use a little bit more here. And don't worry about it being too dark. Or maybe too blotchy, because that's what the spoolie is for, and then you just comb it right through. But it's really all about just going in between the lines, using the spoolie brush without pressing that hard, because if you press too hard, you're taking everything off. So by pressing lightly and going in between the hairs, you're just toning down the dip brow if in case it gets too dark, but you're also just blending, but you don't want it too blended because you want to see the lines. She does have some grays here and there. You probably don't see it as much on the screen. You certainly don't see it now. But she wanted to cover those, but she obviously didn't want to tweeze them, right? Because 2 reasons. 1, no, you're not going to get more hair. And 2, you could pull a good one out. Here's this before and after, beautiful before and after. Here's the Tinted Brow Gel, has a little bit of gel in one. And as soon as I could open this guy, I am just going to apply a little bit right here. And you can just kind of isolate in those areas that you have the gray. So this is a really good thing to have. Definitely, you could also use it for, like, I use it for the hair too sometimes. That's what happens when you get to be 57. You're like, I gotta hide the grays and I can't get to the hairdresser. So beautiful, like I said, beautiful before and after. You can see the hair strokes, but you know what? It kind of goes, don't you think? It It's a beautiful combination. This again is optional. It's getting a little fancy, but I suggest practicing. And you might, you know what? You might even just like the powder. You're like, I'm good with the powder. You can see a little bit of separation from the hair to the skin, but you're good with it because you have something. So that's something also important to consider. You don't have to obviously use a pomade, especially if you feel like I can't do this, but I suggest trying it out. So what do you think? Can you try this little hair stroke? I think anyone can, to be honest with you. You don't have to be an artist. You just follow some simple steps by just think of light pressure, going in an angle. And I think with that and a little bit of practice and patience, you can get something that's similar to a hair. So definitely try it out. Let me know if you have and see if it worked out for you. And thank you for the comments. It really does help me in getting better at what I want to show you and how to help you to get a better brow. So definitely give me a like if you guys like this particular video, and please subscribe if you haven't done so already. And like I said, share this with anyone that you know can benefit from this tip today. And I will see you guys right back here. Thank you.